Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. Tonight we meet the new Fur and Feathers at a local amusement park, and joining me in the studio is Lisa Ravel to talk about National Dying Matters Week. But first, it's over to James Dunn for the news headlines.
Hello, in the headlines today, a local tribute to the wartime Prime Minister and a trip to Buckingham Palace for a local creative arts teacher. An iconic image of wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill has been unveiled at a Grimsby hotel where he allegedly stayed during World War II. Churchill allegedly stayed at the Oaklands Hotel during visits to the bomber county back when it was a gentleman's club. They've now named a room and even a local ale after the wartime leader, and yesterday unveiled a painting in his image. But the Franklin student, who won a competition to have her work chosen, dedicated it to somebody else special.
A while ago, within the Second World War, Churchill stayed here because it was seemed as a safe place. It was a gentleman's club, so gambling and drinking would go on. Yeah, we should be proud of our history, and I think it's very much I think it's quite a good homage to him. We've even actually named our local ale after him as well. So our beer on our bar is named the Churchill.
I would like to dedicate this painting to my granddad. He was big into all the war stuff, and he was born in 1939, so he was only a little child around then. But he was a great inspiration to me, and he supported me a lot for everything I wanted to do. And when I spoke about it before, he really wanted to come, but sadly he passed away in January this year, so I thought I'll dedicate it in his name.
Changes to traffic flow in Grimsby's town centre come into force on Monday as work starts on the final phase of roadworks at the junction between Victoria Street South and Pasture Street. Town Hall Street will reopen to traffic from Victoria Street North towards Town Hall Square, but access to and from Pasture Street will be limited. There will also be a number of changes for bus travellers. For full details on the changes, visit North East Lincolnshire Council's website. Police believe the 23-year-old man attacked on Stanley Street on Tuesday knew his attackers. He remains at Hull Royal Infirmary with serious head and leg injuries, and a 22-year-old man remains in custody. But police want to reassure the public that the parties knew each other. This was not a random attack, they say. They are now investigating links with a pursuit on the M180 away from Grimsby later that day. A car hit and damaged a police vehicle before driving away at around 5 p.m. Police are now looking for witnesses to either incident. Rail journeys in Yorkshire and the Humber have increased by 2% over the last year, according to statistics released by the Office of Rail Regulation. The total number of journeys increased to 64.3 million, but the 2% rise was lower than the national average of 3.3%, driven mainly by a 4.7% increase in London. A 16-year-old boy has been charged with assaulting a police officer, 2 other counts of assault and robbery after an incident in Grimsby last week. He was arrested on Hainton Avenue on April the 16th, along with 19-year-old Stevie Gammon of Willingham Street, who was also charged with robbery. A third man, aged 20, has been released on bail. It was all hands on in Immingham when local school children helped fill 200 sandbags for the trench feature that's been built for the In Bloom Awards this year. Work on the trench began earlier this year, and it's now nearing completion, ready for the official opening at the end of May. Stuart Swinburne, chairman for Immingham in Bloom, one of the organisations involved in the project, is delighted with how it has turned out.
And it's all come together now, and we're really pleased that it's happened as it is now. You know, looking at the memorial stone, the involvement of the school children, which is part of the criteria that's got to be met by the Heritage Lottery Funding, who gave us funding for this project. And it's just fantastic to see it. Community participation, we couldn't have asked for more from the community of Immingham.
We've done some background work about World War I, mainly the conditions, and then we had the commission from Immingham Town Council to do the information board, and the children were very much on board with that. They did illustrations, research, and we built up a montage, and we're looking forward to seeing that board here on site.
And the trench officially opens on May the 30th at 11 a.m. Finally, a creative arts teacher from North East Lincolnshire has been recognised for her work in the community at a special service at St Paul's Cathedral. Jan Dowson, who works for North East Lincolnshire Council's Learning Services, was one of 3 runners-up in the Embroiders Guild Beryl Dean Award on Monday. She was given her accolade by the Duchess of Gloucester, and next month she's been invited to Buckingham Palace for an award presentation. That's all from me. I'll see you next time.
You'd expect some wildlife in our rural part of the world, foxes, badgers, the occasional caribou, but I found a few more exotic species in a Cleethorpes theme park. Cleethorpes, jewel of the Humber Riviera, is more used to flocks of seagulls and the occasional donkey than this spring's exotic new arrivals at Pleasure Island theme park. The petting zoo has just welcomed 2 emus. These elegant birds are among the biggest in the world and still a little intimidating.
The emus arrived a couple of days ago. They're very new to me as well as everybody else in the park, so I'm learning new things myself. They've been walking around and running about. You can see already that they've got very good personalities and they're good.
Birds are not the only attractions at the petting zoo. Their companions include pigs and sheep, cattle and kids, and the intrepid table goat.
We've got Shetland ponies, we have a donkey, pygmy goats, pigs, piglets, lambs. We've just had some chicks hatch during the night. We have guinea pigs and rabbits and calves.
In the first week of the holiday season, the crowds come for feeding time. The cutest are always the most popular.
I think they like the lambs because they get to bottle feed them and interact with them more than they do any other animals.
A pair of alpacas also arrived last week, far from their homelands in the Andes. They're not so keen on hand feeding.
Yeah, they arrived about a week and a half ago. They're very friendly. I've actually been and sat in with them and they've sat down just in front of us. We're feeding them fruit and veg and they're very good.
And beautiful as they are, they have some pretty rough table manners.
I've seen them spit at each other, but I haven't physically been spat on yet, which is good.
And now I have some sports news for you. Hull visit Craven Cottage to face Fulham, a side who are in desperate need of points if they're to stay up this season, and Shane Long is an injury doubt for Steve Bruce. Scunthorpe know that a win at Exeter will get them promoted, but it won't be easy. Exeter need the points to stand a chance of beating relegation and beat the Iron 4-0 in October. Grimsby confirmed their playoff place last weekend, but travel to Braintree, also looking to book their place. Lincoln host Barnet, looking for a 4th win in a row to give the crowd hope for a better campaign next time around. North Ferriby face Brackley Town at Church Road, praying that they can win and that AFC Telford lose their game at home to Gainsborough Trinity. There's only a point between the sides in the top 2 places of the Conference North. Cleethorpes Town could become champions of the Tool Station Northern Counties Division 1 with a game at Appleby Frodingham. However, before then, nearest rivals Shore Lane Aquaforce face Knaresborough Town. Elsewhere, Grimsby Borough wrap up their season at the Bradley Football Development Centre against Botsford Town. Finally, in Evo's Stick Northern First Division, South Goole AFC are at home to Newcastle Town, while Brigg Town travel to Gresley Football Club. Next month sees the launch of National Dying Matters Week, a series of events designed to light our way to dusty death. Probably a bit sad, certainly inevitable. I'm joined by Lisa Ravel. Lisa, thank you for coming and talking to us. What exactly is National Dying Matters Week?
National Dying Matters Week is a week dedicated to sort of raising and challenging the taboo of death, dying and bereavement. So it's a national week where a majority of people do different events, and it's about getting that topic that we don't talk about into society and trying to make it part of living as it is, rather than a subject that nobody talk about. And
what events what will be happening here?
Here locally, we're in Freshney Place on the Tuesday all day.
That's in Grimsby.
That's in Grimsby, Grimsby Shopping Centre, and that's about information sharing. Come and talk to us. Different leaflets. There's professionals there to talk to. We're running 2 death cafes, which is it's a new phenomenon really, but it's a dedicated place where people can come and openly talk about death, dying and bereavement. in the comfort of sharing a cake and a cup of tea. So it's small events, and we're looking at professionals really to get them more confident in having those discussions about death, dying and bereavement. And we're also doing the annual professional conference on Thursday as well.
And what's the organisation behind this?
It's an end-of-life care partnership working with St Andrew's Hospice, Care Plus Group and the North East Lincolnshire Clinical Commissioning Group.
You mentioned there's a sort of taboo about death, and that there's a certain amount of information you're trying to give to professionals who might not be discussing this very much. But by professionals, I assume you're not talking about undertakers here, you're talking about doctors, nurses, people who might provide palliative care.
Yeah, that's and others as well. So it's about general practitioners, it's about consultants, hospital consultants, nurses, care workers in sort of residential nursing homes or home care providers, where actually they are the people that quite often the population will turn to say, actually, I'd like to talk about that. When people are faced with a life-limiting condition, or as we get older, people start to realise that actually life doesn't go on forever, and sometimes people like to have an opportunity to discuss their plans, their wishes, their fears, and having somebody turn to you and say, I'd like to talk to you about my death, is a real valuable opportunity, and we're trying to get people confident enough to be able to take that opportunity to talk to them. What we don't want is people to say, oh, I'm sorry, no.
But I mean, doctors, nurses, these people, they're used to death, aren't they? I mean, death is one of the ways they tell whether or not they're winning.
I would hate to say that nobody should be used to death. I think if people are used to death, then we've become a very discompassionate society. I think it's about recognising that yes, death is normal, it's part of life, but it's actually a really significant life moment for not only the individual but family and friends. And it takes confidence in that. It takes ability in your own discussions to have those conversations.
The more public events that you've got, the more public information out there, not just for the professionals, is that for people who are facing their own death, for their immortality, or facing it soon, or for the relatives, the loved ones, the survivors?
It's absolutely for everybody. There's no guarantees of what tomorrow brings. You know, you live each day as a time. And what we're actually trying to say is it's far easier to have those conversations when you're well, rather than having to have difficult conversations when you know you've only got weeks or months to live. So for me, it's about having that conversation over a dinner table, over a cup of coffee with my family, to say this is what I actually want. If anything happens to me, this is who I want to look after my pet, my children.
And well, you talk about pet, children, but I mean there are all sorts of other arrangements that one might like to make. I mean, presumably there's a legal element here. There's
absolutely.
People are foolish if they don't have a will. People will want to organise the burning Viking longships for their funerals, presumably.
Absolutely, and again, there's so many different opportunities out there for funeral now. You can have a firework, you can have your ashes go up in a firework, you can be spent to space. There's lots of opportunities out there, and again, it's about exploring those opportunities and having those discussions with family and friends.
Lisa, you make it sound rather jolly, but thank you very much for coming on the show. That's all we have time for this time. If you have a story for Estuary TV, then please email news@estuary.tv or contact us via our Twitter or Facebook pages, or pick up the telephone and call 01472 315561. Until tomorrow, goodbye.